Hello, welcome to Inside Out today with myself, Junior Badila. We do have a privilege to be hosting Dr. Jean-Jacques Musumbu, who is a visiting lecturer at University of Bedfordshire in southeast of England. Dr. Jean-Jacques is good friend of mine and respected member of the Congolese Diaspora in the UK. We've seen emergence of African diaspora in the UK, positive impact, not just in the UK, but in Western countries, but at what cost? Doctor, you recently conducted a research with regard to indigenous population in the UK, and we've emphasized of Congolese diaspora belonging identity in the UK. We will talk more about that. I'm joined today with my co-presenter, Neka Unogu. Going forward, will be both myself and Neka exploring issues around diaspora concept in the UK. And this is one of the show that we've been running, and we've joined with Dr. Jean-Jacques Musumbu. Doctor, at what cost African diaspora in the UK, fitting into the UK and overall Western countries?
Good afternoon, Junior and Neka. I'm very happy to be here with you to discuss the matter of diaspora. I think it is important, before talking about diaspora, to try to understand what is the real meaning of the word diaspora. I would say diaspora, apart being a concept, is first of all a phenomenon. Is a phenomenon that might be triggered by another big phenomenon, which is the globalization, because we cannot talk about diaspora if we don't mention globalization, because globalization is like a tool that diasporic people might use to relocate to other locations. Okay. In terms of definition of diaspora, I would say the first one to attempt to provide the definition was William Safran in 1991, but his definition was quite short. He said diaspora is a group of people quitting their original homeland to relocate to one or more host-land destinations. So, from that definition, then it generated a lot of discussion, debate on why Safran could define the word diaspora in such short idea or concept. And then Robin Cohen, who is a South African scholar, academic, working with the University of Oxford, provided a broad definition of diaspora, including 5 typologies of diasporic people. We cannot go in detail today because each typology will ask us to go to discuss a lot about, but I can briefly tell you about victim diaspora. We've got trade diaspora, we've got labor diaspora, we've got even imperial diaspora. Imperial diaspora are people traveling from countries like France or UK to their original colonies.
Very interesting, Doctor. Neka, we had quite recently, we had a discourse around diasporic experience people from Congo, from Nigeria, from Ghana. We recently had an interview with a very interesting guest. We went to London. She's been here for many, many years, and she managed to set up a well-known organization in the UK. This is part of what we've been discussing here in the UK, AUK radio, NECA.
Yeah, no, I think definitely diaspora, should I say the diasporic movement or community, especially with a focus on the African diaspora in the Western Hemisphere, as one would describe it. I think it's taken a very different dynamic shape. Like you rightly said, if we have to go into this, we have to look at it from different angles and with different lens and look at the different categories, like you rightly describe it. I mean, we've had a conversation around this before and went into detail on how Africans who have migrated to the UK and how they've settled, but I think what I'm more interested in starting from your research.
Yeah.
So you recently did a research where you focus on the Congolese diaspora in the United Kingdom. Yeah. Before we go into detail or other aspects of this, the diasporic movement or community, tell us about your research first. What prompted you to start?
Okay. Normally, I've got a business background at university, but you might ask yourself, how come you are from a business background and now you are talking about something that has to do with cultural studies or something that has to do with social sciences? Yeah. When I was at university, I was doing business, but my business focus was the tourism, because tourism, before all, it's a business as well. Yeah, because you can think of tour operators, you can think of a travel agency, all those are businesses. But why I came to investigate about culture or diaspora is because when I was doing my master at the time, I investigated the African diaspora. Yeah, before focusing on the Congolese for my PhD, I investigate for the African diaspora. And looking at business, we noticed that the cultural aspect was neglected by businesses. So
African businesses.
Yeah. The cultural aspect in business of tourism, yeah, was let's say neglected. They didn't take into account. For example, people might travel in your country, in your homeland country, and they might not care about the culture there. And
of the visiting countries.
Yeah, and I became very interested in investigating the diaspora. And then 2 years after, I started my PhD, and I said, let me focus on my community, because myself, I'm a member of this diaspora. Why I should not investigate about what is going on here?
So your community is the Congolese community?
Congolese community. I'm of Congolese descent.
Kinshasa?
Yeah, Kinshasa.
DRC, Democratic Republic
DRC.
of Congo.
And because I've looked around, I saw that nobody was talking about Congo. I said, let me talk about Congo. While I was talking about Congo, I also talked a little bit about Africanity, because Congo is part of Africa. So I didn't neglect the Africanness of Congolese people, and that's why, and that is where I started my research.
Thank you. So you started this research, just as a result of your curiosity, or out of the necessity of identifying with this, or you identifying with the diaspora, is that?
Okay, apart what you are saying, which is called the reflexivity of the researcher, when a researcher himself is involved in the research he's doing, I was also interested to understand why other dynamics of other diasporic people, if they were working in our community.
Okay.
Yeah, and I came to the result that some aspects are very similar for all diasporic communities, while some other are specific to every community, depending on the ethnic identity, depending on many factors. So we can say that.
Okay, thank you.
So what was your finding about Congolese diaspora in the UK? Any particular finding?
Okay, I can say here then from my finding, I noticed that there were many layers of findings. The first generation of Congolese people have strong ties with homeland. And the second generation, they've got the ties are going little bit down. But because of the sympathy to their parent, they are still interested. For example, you will see children of first generation, they will eat the same meal as their parent, but at some point they will say, Mom, I'm fed up of eating this Congolese food. Why are you always eating this fufu on daily basis?
We want chicken chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, English breakfast.
Yeah, that means you are assisting to a phenomenon where diasporic people spouse some culture of the host country. And then for the third and subsequent generation, the matter is different because they don't want to have nothing to do with their ancestral homeland.
I mean, the third generation is children born here in the UK.
Of course.
No, the first generation, I'm talking about the parent, the people that came from Congo, from other countries to their own diaspora.
And then the third generation are the ones.
The second generation are the children that were born from those parents who came here to settle for the first time. And the third generation, they are born here.
Grandkids.
Yeah. The second generation might have people, children who has grown up here.
Yeah.
And children who are born here. But the third generation and subsequent generation, they are totally born here. And they don't want to they can travel. They can engage in what we call diaspora tourism. It is sometimes called diaspora travel or return travel, where people from the diaspora visit their homeland, and they gain some kind of experience from that visit. And when we talk about how they maintain their cultural identities, and there we might now talk about that sort of travel.
That's thank you, Doctor. That's very interesting, and I think this is what you said earlier, having different layers to this subject, and I can see what you meant by that. Now, if we then delve slightly deeper from these generational differences in the diaspora within the family, for instance, what's through your finding? What was your perception? What did you take from your research, or discover? Sorry, from your research.
Okay, the first thing for the first generation of diasporic people, you will notice that after, for example, 5 years of residing here, they might feel some kind of nostalgia for the original country. They might say, "Oh, I need to go back to my country." That is because of the memories that they've got of that country, where they were growing up, when they were children. So all those memories can lead people to decide to go back to their original country. But there is a problem with that. When they go to original country, they will meet some disappointment because of the new forces of globalization. Globalization is the fact of trying to make a world like one, like a wool. So globalization, we've got it in business, in cultural studies, in sociology, in many other fields. Why I'm saying this? Because they might go where they've grown up and they will see that there is a difference. Maybe the old buildings have been destroyed to construct new businesses there. So they've traveled to feel that old identity, that old perceptions, that to go around with their old friends. But when they are going there, they will see that the landscape has changed here.
So the cultural shock is this cultural
Yeah.
shock there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is their own cultural shock of their own culture.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they will say, "Oh, where is my old friend?" Sometimes they will tell them he passed away. Where is my cousin? No, he moved away. He went away. Well, so you are there because of your memories, your souvenir, your old memories, but you are trying to catching it up, but you won't be able to catch it. Yeah, the only thing maybe they will find is the kindness of the relatives that they will find there, because African culture is based on relationality. Not only African culture, but indigenous culture in general, they are based on relationality, where we are related to each one. So they might invite you for a meal, even if you didn't tell them that you were coming. They will be happy to welcome you to eat the meal with them. They will find that, but other things will be missing.
So what's the keys? What are the key solutions for that to fill that gap?
To fill that gap. Okay, the force of globalization are running so quickly in the way that sometimes you need to adapt yourself to the new system. Because when we were children in Africa, for example, I will tell you something. We had some sessions of storytelling where our parents told us stories about our culture, about our ancestors, and it was interesting to see that all children were there to listen. But nowadays, if you go with that culture of storytelling, you know what will happen? They will tell you we need to follow the match between Manchester United and
Arsenal.
Chelsea. Yeah? All that because of the globalization. They've got the mobile phone, they can follow, so they are not interested anymore about the cultural thing. That means we need to adapt ourselves now to keep what we can keep and to adapt other things to the new system.
That's part of belonging, isn't it? Identity, safeguarding identities, Neka.
I think it's interesting that what you've just shared, because it's a global issue for every indigenous people. The reason I say this is recently we've seen there's this rise in the Western. Well, I would say if we go by the modern indigenous, I put in quote, for specific parts of the the Western countries, in the Western world, we see a lot of people complaining, and there's this new conversation or issue that's been raised about the indigenous white people and how they're losing their culture as a result of globalization and other cultures coming in and taking over. Even Elon Musk, he's been very big on this. He's always treating globalization, we're not our culture, we're losing our. So I think it's peculiar. It's not peculiar to one, to just us the Africans, but obviously in this conversation we are focusing on your research, obviously within the Congolese community, but this is a global issue.
It's global. It's a global issue.
Global
yes.
issue for even the whole of African diaspora as a whole, and other indigenous diaspora, or even indigenous people in the West. But I think this, going back to what you said earlier about the storytelling aspect of our culture that is being lost in this globalized world where we all almost eat the same food, we all almost listen to the same music, we celebrate, we watch Manchester at the same time because we've got access to technology. And you're very right in saying that, because if the Manchester is playing now, people, even if it's 2 a.m. in Nigeria, even if there's a time difference, they can access their phone and watch it. So I think it is a problem.
Yeah.
But we see it as a problem because we also want to maintain our identity.
Yes, yes.
But is it right for us who have left our homeland to the West to say it's a problem, because two generations from us, will lose their cultural heritage, or lose their identity almost? Is that for us as people, as the people in the diaspora, to make an issue about it, or is it something that, what would you say to that? I guess my question is, we are the ones that left our homeland and we've come here. We need to adapt. We need to be able to fit in. And we've seen, like we said at the beginning of the show, there's this the diaspora shaping the Western community or Western world in different ways. And like you said, there are different layers to it. We look at politics. We look at even culturally. We celebrate Nigerian independence. We're inviting local leaders who are not necessarily Nigerians, and come and eat our food, come and celebrate our culture with us. And we're intermarrying, and in that way we're losing. So what's your take on this?
Okay, I see what you are saying. You are trying to talk of the matter of being and belonging. Yeah, what you are and where you belong.
Yeah.
Because the cultural identity, they see this matter in terms of being and becoming, which means the cultural identity is changing. What we've assisted in Africa when we see people following Manchester United is what we call the being and becoming. Being and becoming means your culture was like it was before, but now it has changed. It has become to this. So the matter of being and belonging, maybe as first generation, we might try to reconnect to our past. Yeah, we are trying to reconnect to our past. But when we go there, the past is gone. The past is gone. What we can do now, we will keep what we can keep, because even naming our children in Africa, it has changed. You know, I like people when they call me Mwanza than when they call me Jean-Jacques. Everywhere at uni, they call me Mwanza. They don't call me Jean-Jacques. And I like that thanks to our former president who passed away, Mobutu, because he said, he talked about authenticity. Authenticity is a matter that is important in terms of being and belonging.
Okay, I totally agree with you on that. But I think my question is, for that is for you. Obviously, for instance, I don't know, you're a first or second generation in the UK, for instance.
Yeah.
Was your parents here, or did you come?
No, I'm the first generation. I'm one of the first generation.
So it's important. So when you have that, you still have that strong link with Congo, with your culture, and you have that strong sense of identity.
Yes, because when I say what we can keep is what we still have. For example, our food. The food is a tool that can improve your identity.
Okay.
Yeah, the food, even the connection with my homeland. Maybe nowadays with these new technologies, I can connect on daily basis with my people there. Yeah, even if I don't see them, but I can still connect to them. I'm still having some cultural values that I maintain even when I live here. That will make difference between our culture and the culture of other people, our Africanity and the otherness. Because when you are here, there is also the matter of otherness. While the cultural identity of diasporic people is based on the sameness, because you and other African people, you will see your cultural identity in terms of sameness, because some cultural practices might be different, and many of them are similar to African
there's
people.
There's a lot of similarities in our culture, yeah.
So those things that we can keep that still exist, we are sticking on them. The ones that are lost, there is nothing we can do, because even if we try to do the storytelling session in our houses or home here, our children might not accept them. Might say this is the old generation, because they call us old generation.
Talking about sameness, Doctor, do you think that we're talking about Congolese, Africa, indigenous people, and do you think you feel lost when you encounter those kind of diasporic experience? Going back home, you try to fill the gap of the memory, and you bring your cultural experience from UK. Going back home, you find yourself that you lost some of the cultural experience that you encountered before you leave your home. Do you think an individual such myself, or yourself, or Neka in Nigeria, do you think that you feel like you lost somewhere?
I might be lost because I might find that the people I go to find there are more Western than I am. Because I'm reconnecting there to find the Africanity. But what I find there is globalized people who think in terms of Western people.
They want to eat more Western food than yourself.
They dress more Western.
I want to see the tribal dances. I don't see it. I want to see the old traditional meetings, but I don't see it. I see only people watching TVs. Yeah, and which TV? European channels.
Strange.
I'm lost there, where I don't reconnect with Africanity.
Interesting. Just talking about that, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I travel to Congo quite frequently this time. I've realized in Kinshasa, you go families, before French used to be spoken by elite class families in Congo, in Kinshasa, But now in Kinshasa, average all level of families in Kinshasa, their children, their family, they speak French. The Lingala is no more spoken. National languages,
Yeah.
Lingala, Swahili, Kikongo, Chiluba, Kinshasa, the more speaking Lingala, but it is less and less spoken. And children are speaking French. Even young people, they quite easily speaking French than Lingala. Is that an issue?
Yeah, because there is this culture of elitism where they think intellectual must speak a Western language. But there is one problem with that. You are losing your culture because the language is one of the expression, the big expression of your culture. So if we lose our languages, then our culture will be lost, because in the language is there you will find lot of cultural things, lot of cultural aspect.
It's the same Neka in Nigeria as well?
I mean, yeah, I was going to actually just follow up on that, and also ask a question. You know, we as Africans, you know, you're talking about the Congolese and your experience, and as a Nigerian, it's exactly the same thing. You know, talk about similarity, and I think this is across the whole of Africa. So my observation is this is peculiar to Africans, because again, we're bringing this back to the diaspora. Homeland is a different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
We know some of the reasons behind the globalization in Africa, the westernization in Africa. We know those reasons. However, we bring it back to the diaspora. Now we're talking about people who, I'm going to go with the first generation. I'm not going to talk about second generation or third generation, because
let's focus on
the
first
first
generation.
generation, because I think this is where what we would class as a problem, the cultural decline stems from. And in terms of how the first generation have managed and carried our culture, I think my question is, if you, from your research, or what your view is because this is for Africans in the diaspora, when you compare that to the Indians, for instance, the Pakistani community, even the fifth, sixth generation, from my experience, I've got quite lots of friends, they still maintain their culture. They speak their language. So in my own experience, or my observation, I do believe that this issue is beyond just people. What's the word? There's more to it. There's a lot of mindset to those of us in the diaspora who have obviously not been able to pass on. So again, the first generation to pass on this cultural experience, a heritage, to help the future generations carry it on and then maintain that. Now we can look into these from different aspects, because there are challenges to that as well. But again, my view is that there is a problem within the African community, because other communities, whilst they live and adapt the Western lifestyle, they've maintained their cultural heritage, their identity, very well, so that even when you see them, your first encounter, you would know that they have this origin, as opposed to when they speak and you hear the Western, the strong English American accent. Whereas with a black person, apart from the skin color, everything about us, from the hair, from the names, to the clothes we're wearing, is westernized. So what do you say on that, Doctor?
Okay, there is one problem about that. The problem is that we, the first generation, are we ashamed about our culture? if we don't teach our children our culture, there might be a problem. The problem is that they will not take away anything from us. So these people you see like they've got a strong culture is because they are doing everything they used to do in their original countries. They are doing them here. For example, naming their children, they are doing it according to their culture. Wedding ceremonies, they are doing them. They are taking all their children or relatives to the wedding ceremonies. Everything that they are doing, they are involving their children. That's why you see they've got that strong cultural tie to their original culture. But we African now, what do? We talk to our children in English. When they go to school, they talk in English.
That was my question. How do we encourage, how you as a lecturer and a doctor, you conduct your research around indigenous population in the UK, emphasizing in Congolese. How do you encourage Congolese to keep on their identity?
The first thing is the language. I will tell all Africans to speak to their children in their original language, because the English, anyway, they will learn in school. They are learning in English. So there is no way they will miss it. But we need to talk to them using our languages, and they will talk, because a small child is able to talk at least 3-4 languages, and he can distinguish all of them. At my home, all my children are talking Lingala and are talking English. Why I'm doing this? Because I want them to communicate with my relative back home, and they can communicate with them. Because some of our relatives in Africa, they might not speak French or English, but they can speak our original language.
But the thing is, how it looks like that's from my perspective. This is the debate I frequently have in my family. It looks like we, in terms of culture identity, we're too demanding to the third generation, because they're trying their best to connect with their culture of origins. But the culture of origin, where they come from, they're not trying their best to connect with their family here. That's where there is an issue, there is a conflict.
Yes, I remember when you said that. I remember one of my nephew who is here. He told me, Uncle, you know why I don't want to connect to Grandpa in there? Because when I'm talking to them, they are involving a lot of people, and some of these people, they are asking me money. Okay, this to joke might be a problem, because when you present them, you introduce them to the relatives there, and the relatives there sometimes they think these young people are the problem solving, but they are not. They want to just to connect, to talk, to ask, "Oh, Grandpa, how are you?" But nowadays, with the economic conditions in Africa or in developing countries, so they are now forcing these children to avoid them because of this. Because when we talk about this, we need to see the positive and the negative aspect of reconnecting these children to their relative back home. So we need to see what we can do. That is the point. We are not demanding a lot of to them, but what they can do, at least to speak. Because if they speak the language, we were talking about these new teams, African teams, that have a lot of diasporic young people. Many of them, they are born here, but they are happy to represent their original country to the African competitions. Do you think why are they doing that?
It's part of reconnecting.
Yeah, because they feel strong belongingness to Africa. That is why.
Yeah, and I think that's a new trend in my view. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
Where we don't see you hardly see people from the diaspora going back to represent the homeland. So it's good to see that this is happening within the Congolese community, diaspora community. We have, the Nigerian Super Eagles. I doubt it. Well, I haven't heard.
Yeah, there is Lookman. What is his name? Lookman, the guy who's scoring for Nigeria.
Okay.
He's born here in England.
That's good. So it's a new trend. It wasn't like this a few years back. And I think a lot of them, and there's this awakening that's happening, and a lot of people in the diaspora are also realizing that we need to bridge the gap in terms of representing our homeland and helping to build a homeland, which is very good. But I just want to touch on, what Junior said, and the example you gave of your nephew. I think that's for me that is a whole lot of topic for another day. The pressure from the homeland on the diaspora to solve their problems, and often it causes this massive. It brings about this unending weight, burden. Disconnect, because you can't keep working here and paying all these taxes, and then you're carrying the burden of the people back home, even for not just the the new generations. And I quite rightly agree with your nephew, because I've had similar experiences. However, in terms of the young generation, the putting pressure on these children in the diaspora, or those of us in the diaspora, and connecting with those back home, I think it's beyond. Let's forget about those who come begging or wanting you to carry all their solve their problems. But I think the challenge is also, like you said, you mentioned earlier on, is when you look at those in the home country, in the continent, a lot of them are even more westernized than those in the diaspora. So when you're trying to get your child to connect with this young person who's born here, to connect with their cousins back home, and some of them want to talk like British.
Yeah.
They treat them like they're some god, they're special people. There's everything about them, their mindset, the way they talk is like, oh, I'm eating English breakfast. Oh, I went here. Oh, we went to McDonald's in Nigeria. I'm thinking, So you're this child who's born in the diaspora in the UK wants to connect, but all they hear is McDonald's. Oh, I've got McDonald's here. So there's nothing different. There's nothing to take them. So I think it's beyond. So the mindset of those in the homeland is also problematic to helping build that relationship with the reconnect, helping the young people in the diaspora to reconnect with back home.
Yes, it might be a problem because, as you can see, people there, they've got their own issues as well. And these issues are not permitting this relationship to be built. Yeah, because maybe the second or third generation, they are trying genuinely to build, to construct this relationship, while they are reconnecting or connecting with the people down there. They see a different mindset. Maybe those there, they want to be, they say, okay, we eat McDonald's, we would like to eat McDonald's, we would like that. So different things that they are like the opposite of what young people generation are looking for. Yeah.
Very interesting. Talking with regard to cultural food, because food is one of the cultural elements. But I remember talking with one of my friends in Congo, telling me how proud he was when he celebrated his birthday to Wagamama in Kinshasa. I was gobsmacked, Wagamama in Kinshasa, which is a part of the globalization, as you said. But Doctor, as we go into the end of this interesting show, what advice would you give to aspiring researchers in diaspora communities or students in the same field? What advice would you like to give?
I think because there have been many research on the first generation. So we can talk a lot of things about the first generation, but we don't have enough information for the second or subsequent generations. So they should go to research these people, these young people. Maybe they are not young anymore, but they should research them to understand. Because if you want to understand, you need to go in field work. You need to immerse yourself in with the matter of young generations, yeah, in order to understand, because they've got a lot of things to say. Yeah, maybe they don't talk to the parents, but they've got a lot of to say. If young researchers can go to these people, research there, ask them about their viewpoint about the diaspora itself, because they might tell us different things. They might show us why they are not wanting to, let's say, to reconnect, because some of them don't want to reconnect. Because I've got an example of Chinese diaspora in America going back to the China mainland. And then after that experience, many of them said, we will not go back again to China.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know the opinions might be split in this regard, because some subsequent generation might say, okay, I will go again back to Africa. Many others can say, no, I will not go. Okay. Some would say, I will not go because of maybe the culture that they've got here. You know, our children here, they go to school. They are the curriculum of the school here. We don't know what they are telling them exactly about Africa, because sometimes my own daughter told me, Dad, I will never go to Africa. I said, oh, why? That is your original country. She said, oh, the teacher told us people die easily in Africa. Do you want me to go and die there?
Wow.
So we, parents, we need to be aware of what our children are told about our culture.
So create the narrative.
The narrative is important.
Around,
yeah.
So we're rounding up. I mean, I think we're going to carry on this conversation on our next one of future shows.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even touched on globalization and the diaspora, the conflict between.
This is a broad subject, I told you.
Absolutely.
We will never finish it, because the globalization is evolving always.
Yes.
So there are new concepts that are coming out now.
But the diaspora plays a key role in supporting the global agenda. But also, when you come to the indigenous people, say for the Westerners, for them, they see the diaspora as a problem to maintaining their own identity, because it waters down who they are. There's a lot of new rules, you've got different people in their view and how they feel immigrants should integrate and relate and and all that, and it becomes a problem. So that's another subject for another day. But I think to round up, let's just just give your own view. You've kind of touched on that. We talk about how parents should be interested in their children and what they're learning with regard to their culture was being taught. I mean, we understand and we know this from history, how Western historians have always told the story of Africa. So we're not going to go deep into that today. However, from our own perspective, or as Africans in the diaspora, what do you, beyond you, the parent, as a community, I want to hear what your view is, some of your ideas. What would you're doing as a lecturer, obviously doing this research, which is helping to sort of get deeper understanding and insights into the dynamics of a diaspora, the diaspora community. But as a parent and as an individual and as part of a community, how can we, or where can we start to help tell our stories?
Okay.
The positive story that will encourage other people to look, whether they plan to go back to the homeland or not, but maintaining that culture, that identity, so we don't lose it even from 10 generations from now.
Okay. First of all, I think we need to organize an event where we invite young generations to assist, where we might organize storytelling sessions, where people with knowledge can talk about Africa, can talk about their own experiences. So there are many things that we can do, because up to now, I've noticed that when African people organize events, apart things like wedding ceremonies, they keep their children apart. We should involve them if we want them to be part of our community, our culture. We need to involve them in everything that we are doing. Because, for example, in our communities, what I've noticed is that we talk about our things between us only, not our children. Our children don't know what we are doing. We should involve them, first of all, if we want them to be interested in improving things.
Yeah.
That is the key thing we should focus on.
Yeah.
Involvement. Doctor, my last question is, are there enough literatures around Congolese diaspora in the UK? If no,
I think, why just Congolese? You're making it, we're talking about, I mean, that was his research, but within the African diaspora, I think, because this is like you said, there are a lot of similarities, and this is a common problem.
It's a common problem, yes,
for
because
Africans in the diaspora.
what I found about Congolese is what I found about other African
Nigeria.
people.
similar cross experience.
So there are enough literature about African diaspora here in the UK, because if you go to the British Library, you will find a lot of journal articles talking about the experiences of the living experiences of African people in the UK. Yeah, and I think there are enough writing that can give us some insight, some understanding of the problem.
Okay.
What's your title? The title of your? Can you remind our audience the title of your thesis?
African indigenous knowledges, the Congolese diaspora in England. Okay. It was just short like that, but it was strong enough and deep, giving insight from many viewpoints. Because it involved sociology, cultural studies, marketing, business, everything was there. Even suggestion for African governments. Because
to work with the diaspora.
Yeah, even to improve their own curriculum for children there, to start, for example, encouraging young children in school to help them reading in the local languages, because they might talk very well English or French and forget their own languages.
Yeah. So this brings me back to the question before this that I asked earlier, and you gave one good approach to dealing with the the lost identity, getting the children involved. I think that's a very good approach. What else would you say? I mean, this obviously you talk about government back home, but I think this is also very, very useful for those that are in the diaspora.
Yeah, in the diaspora as well, it is important because, there are many communities here, they don't forget their cultural practices.
Absolutely.
For example, Ghanaian community, they are very keen and they are sticking on their own.
They're very close to Nigerians. The ones I know, most of my Ghanaian second, third generation friends can't speak their language.
Yeah, we are talking about second, third generation.
So, but that's the thing. How do we get the second generation to? I mean, getting them involved. It has to come from the first generation. If they still are, you have second generation, third generation who were born here anyway.
Okay.
And they still have that identity.
Another thing that you can do, take them in diaspora, travel to their homeland often. Yeah, you can take them often there.
Yeah.
Maybe let's say every 2 years.
Yeah.
Take them visit there for some time and then come back here with them. They will like going there. They will be interested.
Yeah.
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 They will see that they will experience different things from what they are learning in school, maybe.
But don't you think? I know we're we're approaching the end of the show, but this could open a whole lot of conversation. But I'm going to keep it short, and maybe when you respond, just give me like a brief summary. When you think about when I think about the diaspora and homeland,
Yeah.
and the example you give, taking the kids back home.
Yeah.
Now we have situations like we rightly mentioned earlier, where those back home are westernized. Now, taking your child back home does not necessarily mean there's some culture. I mean, they have that sense of identity. I'm from this region, this part of the world. But do you think that's enough to pass on the culture, some of those things, when you as a parent are not even showing them here in the diaspora, or the older generation are not telling them from their name, they've lost their identity already. From their language, you never taught them the language in the diaspora. So you're taking them back home and they're going there and they're going to be speaking English with everyone that they come across, because they don't understand their language. So everyone else that they meet there are going to be forced, whether they understand, to speak English with them, or French, or any other language, that they've adopted in their second home. Do you understand what I'm saying? So don't you think the responsibility, a bulk of that also starts from here?
Okay, let me give one precision. When I said you go there, you find people are more Western than we are. These are people in the big cities.
Right.
But when you go to the remote villages, the culture is left there. It's strong there to the villages. It's there you need to take children to experience the true culture.
But doctor, some villages like in Congo, I don't know, in Nigeria, but I've encountered experience there. When you go to some remote villages in Congo, you find Chinese, building the infrastructures, and all around you see parabolic antenna, TV antenna, which they capture. They're watching TVs in Chinese, in Mandarin.
Yeah.
That's another challenge as well.
Yes, but the main culture, the main thing in small villages is that they are very strong to respect their cultural values. They will not exchange their culture for nothing in the small villages, and they are the culture keepers.
I think I must say I agree with you. They do have that's yes. If you are looking to reconnect, the big cities are not the place.
Are not.
The villages, yes. I think I would agree. I can't remember the last time I went to my village. The last time I went back to Nigeria, I lived predominantly in the city. But I was fortunate due to a project I was working on to travel to very remote villages. And it was interesting. It was like, a completely different experience. It wasn't my native village. It was a friend who I visited. And I could see the culture, even in their attire, just the environment, the farming, and all that. It gave me this strong. And I think at one point I was thinking, wow, it'd be good to have this kind of simple life, but also it is something about it that reminded me of who I was as an African, a Nigerian. So I think I would agree with you in that.
Yeah, because in the cities, what you see is one of the consequences of globalization.
Yeah.
Doctor, quite interesting debate. Thank you for your time. I remember, I remind our audience, you are a doctor. You focused on the diasporic experience in the unit of indigenous people in the United Kingdom. You are a visiting lecturer at the University of Bedfordshire. You live in Luton as well. You are very much involved in your diaspora, Congolese diaspora in the UK. So thank you for your time. We're just opening a new chapter of discussing the discourse around indigenous diaspora in the UK, emphasizing on African diaspora here in the UK. I've been joined by Neka Unogu, my co-presenter, going forward. Neka and I will be bringing subjects around diasporic experiences in the United Kingdom from Nigeria perspective, Congolese, Ghanaian, South African. And if where you are, you much interested in joining us, bring your own experience with regard to African diasporic experience in the UK, you're more than welcome to join us. You can send us an email at info@aukradio.com. We're on all sorts of social media, so we're in TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
We're on YouTube. So leave your comments. We're going to be posting this on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So do leave a comment. Tell us what other topics you would like us to have to discuss on this program. But it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward to our next show because we're going to be having Dr. On a regular basis, hopefully. From now, there are a lot. We couldn't even cover a third of what we were going to touch on today, but time is it was just flying. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.